This is Femi Kuti, and you are listening to NYC Radio Live.
Hello, folks. How you doing? You're listening to NYC Radio Live. My name is David Ellenbogen. So great to have you with me. We've had some excitement of late. That last podcast with Abik Mukherjee and Jay Gandhi, we made an amazing couple videos that went along with those, and those flew all around the internet, and they sold out that show at the Ruby Museum at 11 in the morning. That's a new record for us. All the Raga Massive shows we've produced there have sold out. Just exciting. There's one coming up I want to let you know about August 12th. Many of you have heard our show with Agua Sango and the Brooklyn Raga Massive All-Stars. If not, search for that one. It's one of my favorite collaborations we ever did, and that will be 7 p.m. August 12th at the Rubin Museum. And buy your tickets early because it will sell out as well. And now we will turn our attention to today's show. This is really amazing. Great guitarist Eric Krasno. Eric Krasno, most people know him from Soulive, which is a huge jam band, and Lettuce, another super funky band. And he's all over the place. He plays with everybody, Norah Jones and Tedeschi Trucks, 50 Cent, Talib Kweli, Aaron Neville, Alan Stone. He's in demand and one of our great guitarists of our time. And I got to go hang out with him at his house. He's dropping a new album called Blood from a Stone, Eric Krasno. And it's awesome. We get to hang with him. He picks up a guitar and plays some music, and we get the story of Eric Krasno. So let's see, when is that album coming out? It's very soon, July 8th. Blood from a Stone, Eric Krasno. So maybe this conversation will whet your appetite. Here I am hanging out at home with Eric Krasno. Enjoy. All right, we are in the home studio of Eric Krasno. Wow, great to be here with you, man.
Yeah, thanks for coming through.
Yeah, you got a new album coming out, Blood from a Stone. That's hitting momentarily.
Yep.
Momentarily. And in the last week or two, you've been playing with Phil Lesh and friends, and a good percentage of the Meters with what's that group called?
They were calling it Foundation of Funk.
Right.
Yeah, which is Zigaboo on drums from the Meters, George Porter on bass, and then myself and Neil Evans on organ. I'm playing guitar. It's from Soulive, 2/3 of Soulive. So we had half of the Meters and 2/3 of Soulive. Smushed together.
Yeah, and Soulive is that's probably the band that people know you the most from. I mean, that's got a huge following.
Yeah, Soulive, we've been around since '99, which sounds insane. And then Lettuce has also been touring quite a bit, and we started that back in '92. So even further back when we were in high school, when we were little kids, basically. And so Lettuce tours a lot now. I don't always tour with Lettuce at the moment, but I'm definitely still a part of it. So.
Right. And then I was looking at the list. It's like insane, all the great people you've been working with. Like
I've been really fortunate, for sure.
Insane. Yeah. Like from Aaron Neville to 50 Cent.
Yeah, kind of, and anywhere in between. Yeah. I produced Aaron Neville's new album, which is actually coming out this summer. And we just released the first single online or whatever, and called Be Your Man, which was a huge honor to work with him.
Right.
He's one of the great singers of my generation, or I guess previous generation to me, and I've been a fan of his forever. So to get to do that is pretty epic.
Yeah, I'd say. So I'm kind of curious. I mean, apparently you've somehow gotten to this point where you're playing with a lot of your heroes. Is there something that you learned that you didn't think, something you could only learn? Say, we could even start with like Phil Lesh.
Yeah.
So something, you might have had your ideas, just listening to him as a kid or whatever, Grateful Dead as a kid. But then what do you learn from being in the situation, actually playing on stage with a guy like that?
Well, first off, it's mind-blowing to be playing on stage with him. Some of my first concerts I ever saw the Grateful Dead, I used to like collect the tapes when I was a kid. I had an older brother who was a Deadhead. He was like 6 years older than me, so he used to bring me around to shows, and I was super into it. It's how I discovered playing and improvisation and songwriting and all that. And so first off, it's just like crazy to be on stage with them. But I have to say that Phil is just such an incredible musician and person. I mean, he has just endless energy, and he plays 2 sets, an hour and a half, and then the second set's usually about 2 hours every night, with different musicians all the time. So you've got to imagine a guy who's been playing these songs for 50 years and adding more to the songbook and all these things, and he rehearses again and again with new guys every single time, and organizes these new bands, where he could easily just have a band and just go tour around with that band and give it make it nice and easy. But he wants to challenge himself constantly. And he, as a composer and as a player, really defined a sound that nobody else does.
Right.
It's really interesting, and to play with him is so cool, because he really wants you to bring your thing to it. As far as the whole Phil and Friends concept, he really wants all the musicians to learn the tunes and play the tunes, but really add their own vibe to it and put their own touch to everything. When I first did the first show, I had all these pedals, and I was like, oh, I'm going for the Jerry sound. I mean, I knew I wanted to do my own thing with it, but He was very much like, do your thing with this, and add your flavor to these songs. And the songbook is amazing. It's been such a huge challenge for me to learn all this music, and all usually in a very quick period. He'll give me the songs the day before, and I'll just have to dig in and chart them out and figure them out and whatever. But it's been a great challenge, and it's been great for me as a songwriter too, just to kind of discover all this music again and really get inside of it and learn it.
Right. And as a bass, I mean, I know you're playing bass with Tedeschi.
Yeah, all right.
Band.
Or I did, yeah.
So that's like you're saying, like, no one else did what he does, and no one still plays like Phil. Like, I mean, no. It's a really unique thing. I read an interview with Jerry once, and he said that they would speed up the tape, like double or triple speed, and they would see that Phil was actually doing some really long form, like, 64 bar, like, ideas or something.
Yeah,
like that.
He rarely, and a lot of people consider the bass to be like the root that plays on the one and plays the root notes and kind of grounds the music, and he just took that and flipped it on its head. That whole concept, he plays everything but the one, a lot of times, and like you said, he rarely repeats anything. It kind of meanders, but in the coolest way, because it breeds creativity from everyone else, because you're not just relying on this pulse,
Right.
It's like very fluid and moves all around, so.
Right, and then on the other side of the great bass players, that week before you're with George Porter.
Right.
And obviously that's a huge influence and inspiration of the Soulive and Lettuce kind of direction. Sure. So what was different, or what do you like? Would you learn from playing with him? I
mean, very, very different, but there's some similarities in the fact that they both kind of created a thing, they both are kind of, pillars of bass, George has just, played on so many records and so many memorable bass lines, and one of the funkiest people alive, and he sings his ass off. Mm-hmm. So, it was great. And learning that music is really kind of like, in my wheelhouse, I guess you'd say. I've been learning that stuff for a while. So to get to play it with those guys is amazing. It's a little less work for me because it's like it's more like embedded in me, the meter stuff.
Right.
And so it's a little bit more, a little easier. There's no charts on stage. You know what I mean? I'm just playing. Whereas the dead stuff, I'm very much, I'm trying to get away from the books, but when you learn like all these songs with a million chord changes the night before, you got to have some sort of cheat sheet. Yeah. So, very different, but in both cases, I respect the music on the highest level. So it's, I feel very blessed to be able to play with both of them.
Right. I mean, do you have any theories of why you've made it so far in the music business? I mean, working with all these great musicians and touring around the world. Like, is there something you might have done right?
Well, I would say that I like to first of all, I love what I do. I really enjoy it. I really have a passion for it, and I think that shines through because I'm really excited and happy to like do a lot of this stuff. And I think that I know that when I'm working with other people, I always look for that. If someone's really into it and they're excited and they want to push it, they want to really like push the boundaries with it and create something fresh. I've always wanted to do that. And, I guess, I try to be nice to people. I think that's an interesting thing. It's like, I've talked to young musicians a lot, and, when they ask me like, what do I do? And I'm like, well, you practice, work on your craft, and be nice to people. Be like pleasant to be around. Because the thing is, like, when you're on the road and you're touring and stuff, you spend like 2 hours on stage and, the rest of the time traveling in tight quarters with people. So, you don't want to be a jerk.
Yeah. I think like the days of like a jazz musician could behave like Charlie Parker and still have a career. I think that's kind of done.
There's certain people that are able, that are just creative geniuses, and they can do what they want to do. But again, like, if no one wants to be around you, it's hard to get work,
Yeah.
So.
Well, that's a good insider tip. Because the other thing is like, just listening to your music and watching you in a show. I mean, there's like, I think people see you as someone they can really rely on, right? Like if they hand the ball to you, you're gonna take a good solo. Yeah. It's gonna have an arc. It's gonna do, and you're gonna bring it home, and people will be happy and back home, and like, you're gonna, if you're playing bass, you're not gonna slip and be like, fuck, right? I mean,
yeah. I mean, I would like to say that I'm pretty reliable. And I take things seriously. If someone asks me to do something, what I've been trying to get better at is knowing when to say yes and when to say no. Because what happens is, and just as far as gigs and sessions, and because I don't like to not give it everything, you know, and I think sometimes I'll take too many gigs because I get excited and I want to do everything, and then you know, if the quality starts to diminish because I'm spread too thin, like that's something that that I don't like. Right. You know, I don't want that to happen.
Yeah, I mean, I would think for a lot of people, rehearsing happens generally less than everybody would like. In a lot of situations.
And that's one thing that's been great with my new band. You know, I'm starting a new band, Krasno band, you know, based around this album and all the music, and it was like, that was the thing, was finding a group of people that were like not only great people and great to be around and great musicians, but also that were willing to like put some real work into rehearsing. There's a lot of harmonies and just a lot of intricate stuff going on with this album. So I'm excited that I found like an amazing group, and we just started rehearsing, and it's just starting to feel like a thing, you know. So I'm excited for that.
And this is your kind of maiden voyage of being lead singer. Yeah. So that's new territory.
Yeah, pretty much. You know, I've recorded stuff, and I've done, you know, over the years, from producing a lot of people and writing songs with people, I've recorded a lot of vocals, a lot of them like for demo purposes as a songwriter. And with this particular project, though, you know, being on stage and being the lead singer on stage and directing the band and stuff, it's definitely new, and it's pretty nerve-wracking. But I've done it a lot. You know, I've been in that role as a band leader, but not with myself as the lead singer. Yeah. So it's a challenge, but I'm ready for it.
Yeah.
You know?
Is it an emotionally like kind of another step in terms of risk or
yeah. Oh yeah. Your voice is the most vulnerable thing, you know. Once you're out there singing, that's really a different thing. You know, it's also very much like, you know, your body and your health, it all is connected. So it's like, when you play guitar, you know, generally I could be sick or like a little hoarse and whatever, and I'm still going to play the same. It's like you're singing, it's really, you got to take care of yourself, take care of your voice. And I've just been like, you know, I sang before, but I never learned to sing. So it's been an interesting, you know, now I'm like really like learning some technique and stuff. I'd always just kind of you know, did what felt right, you know, what sounded right. And so now I'm trying to teach myself to sing, which is, you know, at this point, being around a while and stuff, but I love it. I love it. It's like been really exciting to me and now I'm like excited to play more guitar too, because it's a whole new thing, kind of accompanying myself and then singing. So it's been exciting, you know, like watching you be able to do new things you didn't think you could do. It's like, you know, it gets you kind of revved up, you know? Yeah. So even though I wouldn't consider myself a great singer, but I have aspirations to get there. Yeah. You know, so, and you know, right now I'm taking it one step at a time, just trying to sing these songs well, you know, and I've been taking on a bunch of covers, and Phil's been having me sing a bunch on the Dead shows, and learning new songs and singing them that day is a big challenge, you know, which is, but I love it. Been having a great time.
I'm curious, like when you're singing, are you aware of like every note pitch wise, like what's happening? Or are you like, yeah.
Well, I mean, maybe a little too much so in my case, but that's part of having done so much studio stuff and producing and engineering and stuff. I hear every time I'm flat or if I don't hit an inflection, which messes with me, you know, like I've kind of got to ease myself down from that a bit. Cause, you know, like I listened back to rehearsal right before you came over, and I had a rehearsal this morning, for, like we're doing a live on video thing at Bonnaroo, and I had to use a different band for that because I had to use the people that were going to be at Bonnaroo, and it was like this whole thing that kind of came together. And I'm listening back, and like every little note, I'm just like, oh, this. But it's great because the more I hear myself do it, the more I can kind of like fix things. But sometimes I've got to not be overly critical, though.
Right. Yeah, because also a lot of times what what people resonate the most with are the imperfections and the fragility.
This is true. I mean, Jerry Garcia is a perfect example of that. You know, like he was such a vulnerable singer, and you could hear that in there. And his pitch was, you know, it sometimes was great, and sometimes all over the place. But that wasn't the point. It wasn't supposed to be perfect. You know, so that's something that I've been like working on, because it's the most important thing. Like the most important thing is getting the emotion of the song, right? You know, and really feeling it, feeling the lyrics, and feeling the words and the melodies. You know,
like a guy like Jerry, if he's singing about cowboys, you're looking at a cowboy on stage. Like he becomes like a 49er. You're like, wow, this guy. Yeah, it's very mysterious, this music thing. So. Who came, like, who are you like most intimidated by? Like when you're like, oh my God, this is, I can't believe I'm with this person, or like, how am I gonna get through this? Or
wow, that's a good one. I don't know. Oh well, I guess we opened for the Stones for a tour, and I remember kind of thinking, oh, we're never gonna meet these guys, like, you know, because like they're, you know, it's the Rolling Stones. And the first show we did, we walked in our dressing room. Keith's just back there, like, hey fellas, you know,
ready to party,
ready to hang. And I wouldn't say I was intimidated, but I was like, whoa. You're like, it was like I felt like I was in a cartoon or something. Right. But he was so cool. Oh man, those guys were so great. And they like chilled on the side of the stage that first night and watched the set. And you know, they brought us back on tour a couple years later.
Wow.
We got to do 2 different separate small tours with them.
Talk about getting the nod.
Yeah, it was huge, man. It was so cool. Such a cool hang.
Wow. So maybe, I mean, we got, let's maybe we should pick up the guitar. Look at some.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know what you,
well,
so I have it in my hand like that.
Ah. So let's see. Once I saw this interview with Oscar Peterson, and the guy was like, what about Errol Garner? And he was like busting out. So, all right, I heard you do an Albert King like reference on some solo. Is he someone that you like?
I love him. Well, I kind of have, it's funny, and I'm such a huge Albert King fan. I found Albert King through Stevie Ray Vaughan, though, because I'm a younger.
Right.
Well, I guess I'm not that young, but
how old are you?
I'm about to turn 40 next month.
Oh, we're the same age.
Yeah. So, you know, I mean, I'm definitely not a young guy, but I heard Stevie Ray Vaughan first. Mm-hmm. And so I always equate like the like. That's like the, you know. I mean, he had massive hands, and he would just beat that guitar up. And that's how Stevie Ray, you know, was too. I mean, Albert was also a massive guy. I think he was like 6'7". Mm-hmm.
And the guitar was upside down. You didn't know?
Oh, that? Yeah, with Albert, yeah, you're right.
Yeah, he pulled down to the ground.
Yeah, he pulled it down. So that's also a different thing. Yeah, that's right. Yeah.
That kind of lick where it's like whoop whoop, whoop like that.
Like, yeah, he would bend like, you know, like he would bend so high, man. You know?
Wow.
But I would say that I was more. I love Albert King, but like BB King, that was what made me like weep. You know, because he just had the light touch.
Right.
Yeah, he was more like with the. It's all
Exactly.
that vibrato.
That's it. That's it right there.
Although he didn't really play chords. BB King never really learned any chords.
Really?
From what I this is what legend has. Although when I met him and he did say that, he was like, oh, I don't play, I don't need to play any chords. I got these guys. He's like, these guys do that, and they'd be like, the guy I remember. I wish I had his name, but he had such a great backing guitar player who like sounded kind of like Wes Montgomery. He had all those like.
The guy kind of looked like him a little bit. Or no,
I don't think so.
No, okay.
But I hung out with. I sat in with him on his 75th birthday.
Wow,
it was crazy. And I went to the sound check or whatever and hung out, and I ended up hanging out with the guitar player. I'm gonna figure out his name before. But and he started playing all these crazy like alternate things on the blues, and then I started like listening, and he is doing a lot of that underneath BB that I just didn't really ever like notice before.
Wow,
different inversions and just cool little things, and then BB's just kind of singing over it,
Right. BB seemed like one of the early guys to look at the more of the major pentatonic kind of thing.
I mean, he would do, he would play like the minor shit, but he was mostly like, let us be the angel. He would play all that major stuff. I mean, he would play an entire solo right here.
Well,
that's all he would need to do. He needed 3-4 notes.
Right.
That's all I needed to do. That's all I needed to say, and that was plenty.
Right.
And that's the thing. It's like whenever, and I apply this to myself. Whenever I listen back to anything that I do, my biggest critique is like I could have done less. I should have done less.
Wow.
Because, and BB was the king of that.
Right. Space.
BB King. But and I mean, because his vibrato. The vibrato is such a funny thing because that's like, I think you're thinking. But vibrato is what makes your voice and your guitar playing and all of that Is that, so it's like he had that sweetness, and it was in his voice too. So also BB was one of my favorite singers.
Amazing singer, yeah.
So he had it all.
Yeah. And then, did you ever get into Freddie King as much? Or?
Not as much, Derek Trucks was the one who really. I mean, I always had had some records,
right?
And he's the one who was like, "Okay, we're gonna like get you situated with Freddie King." He played me a bunch of stuff when I was on tour with them. So I'm a late bloomer with Freddie King, but I love him.
Right.
But like then when I discovered him, I went down the rabbit hole.
Right.
I checked out all the YouTube stuff, and he's pretty. He's definitely one of the best.
So what were the other early kind of blues guitarists that got into your thing? Or is that
Hendrix to me was what got me into everything.
Right.
That was everything. So, and then from there is where I discovered. So that's the thing for my generation. It's like my generation, a lot of us, that was the portal, was Hendrix. As far as guitar, Hendrix. And I was into like Jimmy Page. I was into Zeppelin. I was a big Zeppelin fan. First thing I ever learned was on an acoustic. What is it?
Right.
But then from that, I started discovering where it came from, and that's where Albert King and BB King and all that stuff, Buddy Guy, Hendrix was the one that that was the thing, and that because also that was like my thing. It was like my parents had great taste in music. They loved the Beatles and the Stones and Stevie Wonder, and all that stuff was in my house. But then like Zeppelin and Hendrix was like more my thing.
Too
that
harsh
was my
for their
that was more like
yeah.
oh yeah, like this is
Right.
I remember I had my little record player. I just like put my headphones in there and I would learn, that was when I started learning stuff, and the Dead too. But the Dead was also like my brother was really into the Dead. But then but I had a good period of the Dead stuff, and I learned a bunch of like Jerry stuff.
Right. That's worked its way a little bit into your sound, right?
Oh yeah, especially lately because I've been doing so much of the Dead stuff and like learning his parts and stuff.
And that nice track on your album with Dark Trucks.
Yeah.
That has a kind of homage. But anyway,
Yeah,
you're about to play. Where you
oh no, I was just remembering that. So when we were playing Fire in the Mountain with Phil this weekend, it was such a surreal thing because I hadn't really thought about it, but I realized that I learned that solo, and I remember I was like maybe 16 or something,
right?
And it was like one of the first lead guitar things that I like learned a solo,
right?
And I played some of it when it got to the solo part, and they kind of looked at me, or I think Phil was like, oh, I remember that, and it was like. I don't know if that was exactly it, but something like it. See, Jerry had he was like a lot deeper than a lot of guitar players realize. Like he knew. I mean, all those songs have crazy changes, and he didn't. They don't seem like they do, but they do. Like Terrapin has all those changes, and he's playing all over that stuff, and he makes it really lyrical. He knew. He wanted the guitar to emulate that vocal thing, and then he also did all this cool connecting stuff, like on Deal, like he plays over those changes, and that's not the easiest thing to play over.
Right.
And he plays over like it's nothing. And he's just playing like the vocal melodies and doing all these things. He would be like, his thing was, doing, there's a lot of like jazzy stuff that he would do, but with like some real soul to it,
Yeah. And, also, there's something he could touch on, a kind of like a mystical feel somehow, like this thing floating where you're like following him, which is like not like a Jimmy Page wouldn't necessarily go there, or B.B. King or any of those guys. That was like his own thing. Like,
well, he had a soft touch too. So it wasn't like he would come in with a solo. I mean, sometimes he got fiery, but it wasn't like he'd come in the solo like Stevie Ray, like or Hendrix. He'd like work his way into. There was a story to it. There was a theme to it. There was and that's in their writing too. I mean, they wrote some incredible, really complex stuff. Like the whole like. I'm not like used to this guitar. Fuck. I mean, that's like one of the passages in Help on the Way. Slipknot. I played it in the gig the other night. No, I can't play it. Yeah. Anyway, so his stuff was really complex, you know. I mean, but then again, he could also like play country tunes and give it that same vibe. And he was great on pedal steel and banjo.
Right, amazing on the pedal steel. Did you get into the country blues and bluesgrass kind of style?
Yeah, I had a little bluegrass stretch right when I was first starting out. My brother played banjo for a while, so it was really like hanging out with him. And I learned like a few tunes, and I used to play the Salt Creek. I don't know what was it? Ah, shit. That was sloppy. But I had a little stretch where I would play some bluegrass with my brother and his friends and stuff. My dad played a little mandolin when I was a kid, so he'd have his friends over.
Were you in California?
No, this was in Connecticut, actually. Like, I was there till I was like 13, 14. So
somehow you have a California vibe.
Yeah, I love California.
Yeah.
I think I'll end up there someday, probably. But, yeah, man. So, you know, I kind of, you know, I like everything. I'm not a big country guy. And I don't know. I do
probably Hank Williams is all right.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. and I, you know, there's some things I get into in that world, but I'm more so bluegrass, you know. I really like Tony Rice and Sam Bush.
Oh, yeah.
And so there's some bands out there doing it now that are good. Green Sky Bluegrass and the String Dusters, and it's cool to see those traditions kind of like live on, but also evolve and morph and stuff.
One thing I was thinking we could touch on was like, so few people when they think about Hendrix think about how he totally radicalized rhythm guitar. Like he was, and I'm sure that that's something you've got under your fingers.
Yeah. I mean, you know, he did that for a while. He played with the Isley Brothers for a while.
Right.
He played with Little Richard. And so I mean, he had everything.
Right.
So it's like, you know, I always hear that he just like carried his guitar with him all the time. He never put it down. He'd just carry that thing, and like he was just playing it at all times. It became like an extension of him. So I feel like he just was it. You know, it's like, and he learned all these crazy inversions and stuff, and like, all that stuff, like, and he was funky, you know. He was funky without even really, you know, knowing it. He just kind of, he just blew everything wide open, you know. He was just like, there was he listened to Dylan and all these great songwriters, but was a psychedelic dude and played the shit out of blues and all that stuff. And he just took all of it and threw it all together and threw all the rules out the window. Yeah, you know, and we needed him. We needed him to, in order for everything. I mean, from him, so many things happened that wouldn't have happened. It's kind of amazing how one person can have that impact. You know, of course, there was a community around him and stuff. Right. It's pretty insane.
Yeah, I kind of feel that no one, like that solo at the beginning of Electric Ladyland. I mean, that blues, Voodoo Child, the original, not the Slight Return, but. I've never heard a blues that touches that, you know, in terms of just, the heights.
It's you know, he took it someplace it'll never go again.
I'd love to hear you kind of to show off some of that comping style that I know you've picked up on. You know,
I don't know. I can't say that I really like. I'm trying to think of like a Hendrix like rhythm thing. I mean, he would do a lot of the octave stuff, like, you know? he was like. Except imagine delays and phasers,
right?
And Marshall stacks.
Right.
But yeah, you know, he had a lot. He had a lot of deep knowledge of that stuff.
Right. And how about kind of this super funky thing that you've gotten deep into, this kind of like the New Orleans kind of funk style, or the James Brown kind of?
Yeah, I mean, you know, Leo Nocentelli.
That's very unexpected.
So it's country-ish, you know? Trying to think of like, what's another one? That whole style too. It's like he's chucking the whole time, and you're muting with your hand, so it's like. You know, so you know you're playing rhythm the whole time.
Yeah, right. That's you know? Catfish Collins kind of just.
Yeah, I mean Catfish Collins too. I mean those guys. The like Jimmy Knowling and the James Brown style, you know, there'd be one guy going, you know, one person doing that. I mean, I'm not playing anything exactly right.
No,
playing in the style of
right.
But
give it up,
yeah,
turn it loose.
Yeah, what's that one? Yeah, I mean, you know, that was like the next phase that blew my mind was hearing James Brown and. You know, hearing how funky those guys were and that band. I mean, Clyde. I mean, the fact that he found all those people and put them all together. You know, Bootsy.
Right. Well, they came
Catfish
to him.
Yeah, or one way or another or whatever. But like he was able to attract all those people to this. You know, Fred Wesley and Maceo Parker together. I mean, how do you? There's no one funkier on the planet than those two guys at those instruments. So the fact that they were in the same section together. You know, and then I mean, of course, everyone feeds into each other and influences each other. But Clyde and Jabo and you know all the great players that were in his bands, it was ridiculous. You know?
Yeah,
and just so funky at all times. You know
that music. I mean, the way that Bach will live on. I mean, that music's gonna live on. It's like gone in every direction. I mean, there's African funk. There's there's everything. Yeah,
it's pretty
Thai
amazing.
Funk. Wow. So I wonder, are we able to play your album? Are we able to do that on the
there's
show?
one
track.
It depends. There's one track that's out, and then it depends on when it's airing. But there's another one coming out next week, premiering next week. So
cool.
Friday of next week or middle of next week.
Yeah. So okay. Well, we'll wait. So we will be able to do that.
Yeah.
So like. Just curious about how these songs came to you and that whole process.
Yeah, making this record was really fun. I initially wanted to make kind of like a psychedelic blues record, and I started writing some songs and putting some tracks together. And when it really started taking shape is when I reached out to Ryan Zoidis, who is the saxophone player in Lettuce. And he's just like one of the guys I go to when to play him music or to get references. He just has a deep knowledge of music. I just really trust his tastes, and you know, he's just like one of my go-to guys when when I'm like, okay, I'm working on this project. Okay, what do you think? You know, and he instantly was like, hey, you got to hook up with David Gutter. And I don't know if you guys know who Dave Gutter is, but he was the lead singer, or is the lead singer in Rustic Overtones. He's in a group called called Armies, and he, you know, is just an amazing songwriter. And I kind of needed help shaping what the lyrics and what everything was going to be about. And when I sent him some of the instrumentals, he just like came right back to me. He was like, dude, I got this for this, I got this for that. Just come up here. So they live in Maine, in Portland, and they at the time Rustic Overtones were rehearsing in this barn. And I was like, well, what if I come up there and we just like kind of flesh out some of these tunes? And he was like, great. So I called Ryan back, Zoidus, and I was like, hey, I'm gonna come up. He's like, dude, why don't we record it? Like, you know, make it sound decent. You know, bring up some mics. So I brought some mics and I brought a few pieces of gear, and we kind of scrambled around town, got some gear. And then Chris from the London Souls, Chris St. Hilaire, and Stu Mahan, the bass player, came through. And really, we intended it to be a writing session, but half of the album was recorded in those few days. Just because, like, while we were coming up with words and while we were coming up with melodies and whatever, it was just like the energy was there. And so we were cutting it, even though it was like in a self-made studio. Like, we had an old 8-track Otari tape machine rigged up with like old cables and dusty gear, and we borrowed the preamps and the mics, but it came out great, you know, because we just experimented with weird sounds and got it cool. Then I brought it down here and brought it into my world and tweaked things and added things. And so, you know, that was the root of it. And so I like 5 or 6 tracks or maybe more were from those sessions. And then from there, that was kind of the foundation that influenced kind of the rest of the album, the writing of the rest of the album.
Right. And then there's that killer track with Derek Trucks. So you have a long history with him?
Yeah, Derek and I have been friends for a long time. One of the very first Soulive tours, national tours that we did was with Derek Trucks Band back in 99, 2000 era. And, you know, and then he soon after that got the Allman Brothers gig, and he would come to New York every year, you know, and he would call me up, you know, because I was like one of the only people his age that he knew, you know, like up here. So like we would go record shopping a lot, and he's another guy that I call, you know, I'm like, hey, I got this thing, check this out, check out this mix of this song, or, you know, here, he's got a great ear, and he's he's maybe my, you know, in my top 3 guitar players, you know, in the world. So, if not my favorite. Right. So, I look to him for all, you know, it's been a really cool friendship, and I've worked on all the Tedeschi Trucks albums and in some way, shape, or form, played on and wrote a bunch of songs for them. And so the second album, I wrote like 5 songs, me and Dave Gutter. So once we formed this kind of writing partnership, he and I ended up writing a bunch of songs for Tedeschi Trucks Band in the second album, in which case I went down there and I worked on the album with them, played on a bunch of tracks. And when that album was done, you know, they were looking for a bass player to come out on the summer tour. And I was like, well, I might be able to work it out. I'll move some things around, and ended up playing bass with them for about 4 or 5 months.
Wow.
And then also Dave and I wrote the entire new Aaron Neville record, because once that came on my radar, he was looking for a producer, and he explained to me what he was trying to do. He was like, I've got like 50 poems. I'm trying to take these poems and make an album, you know, of songs with this. And I was like, I think I have the team for this. Wow. So I called Dave. He sent us the poems. We went up to Vermont and like sat in my mom has a house up there. We went up there and like kind of shut ourselves off for 3 or 4 days and put together a bunch of songs. Then he came here and we kind of fleshed out a bunch of stuff with Aaron, and got Joel Hamilton, one of my favorite engineers, to engineer and mix it. And then got a bunch of got Adam Deitch from Lettuce, got the Dap King horn section, and was able to piece together a pretty amazing team to make that record.
Wow.
Yeah, I played bass and guitar and stuff.
Wow.
And Adam Smirnoff from Lettuce played all the rhythm guitar stuff. I played like lead and then played bass. So yeah, it was such a cool process.
Wow. So you're excited about that? You're excited about this new album and the new band?
Yeah.
What else?
Yeah.
What else are you getting geared up for?
Well, there's some more Phil and Friends stuff going on. We're doing Phil and Friends in Coney Island in September, which is going to be with the whole Soulive crew and the Lettuce Horns, Carl Denson and Jackie Green. So I'm looking forward to that. And there's talk of some other dates that I'm going to do with Phil. And other than that, really focusing in on doing my band, the Eric Krasno band, and got a killer group of guys and a girl and gal, and we're hitting the road, man. We're like all summer, got a bunch of dates. And erickrasno.com for the plug, just so you can see the tour dates and see what's going on. That's mainly it. You know, there's a few other things I'm producing. I produced the Motet's new album, which is coming out, and I'm working with Alan Stone on his new project, who I love Alan. He's amazing. I recently produced a group called Lawrence, Clyde and Gracie Lawrence. They're a sibling duo, incredible. You should check them out. Like soulful, kind of, it's like poppy soul music. Great band, like 7 or 8 piece band. They're out on tour all summer. They're at Bonnaroo and really cool stuff.
So you're doing a lot. You're doing
a lot. And then I've got the label Feel Music Group, and we put out Nigel Hall's album, and I produced that, and we put out the London Souls record, and we're putting out my record, and starting to look at some other things that we're gonna do moving forward. So
is there like a time management issue? Like
a little bit. It's hard to You know, my girlfriend she's a saint.
The walks in the park take a back seat to the Aaron Neville record.
You know, luckily she's really into music, and she supports what I'm doing, and so does, you know, I'm fortunate because, like, you know, my family and my friends, they all support what I do, and deal with all of the stuff that goes along with it.
And was there a tipping point, like career wise, where you felt like, okay, now that this is real, like this is happening?
You know, one thing I have to say is that, like, you know, the Soulive and Lettuce crew, being in those bands has not only like shaped everything that I do, but they're my best friends, they're my family, so they've always been supportive of me going and doing other things, you know, which is like amazing, because, you know, imagine being in a band where they were like, oh, you're gonna do that? Well, screw you, you know.
Right. That's most bands.
Yeah, exactly. So I'm really fortunate that they're my friends and my family, because, you know, and it's always there to go back to, you know. With Soulive, we've had so many different things happen and different incarnations, and all of us have done so many things, but we all know that at the end of the day, we're gonna make another record, and we're gonna tour again, we're gonna play shows, and we have an album that is in the works that's produced by Pretty Lights, that's gonna be really awesome when that comes out, and we start touring with that too. So, you know, there's a lot of things going on, but it's all like kind of part of a bigger plan, I guess, you know.
Yeah. All right. Well, thanks for spending the time, man. I appreciate it.
Yeah, absolutely. Thanks for having me, man.
And, you'll let me know the next 50 things you.
When we're ready to talk about the next chapter.
All right.
Right on.
Cool.
Thanks a lot.